It's been over a month since I've done my last mock draft, and with free agency not in full swing anymore, let's do another one. After several shocking mix-ups and a couple dead giveaways in this draft, the end of free agency just marks another day until we get to the NFL draft. I'm Chase Keller, and welcome to post-free agency 2024 NFL mock draft. Enjoy. Beginning with the Chicago Bears at first overall. This decision became straightforward on Saturday after Justin Fields was traded to the Pittsburgh Steelers. There's no doubt anymore that the Bears will go QB, and that quarterback will be USC's Caleb Williams. There has been a trend recently where the Commanders will take LSU quarterback Jaden Daniels instead of North Carolina quarterback Drake May. Daniels fits the Kingsbury offense more than May, even if he might not be the better prospect. But one thing is certain, the Commanders won't be rolling with Mariota and they will select a quarterback this time. So which one is it? I said Daniels last time, but this time around I'm going to roll with May. The UNC product goes second overall. So does New England go with quarterback? My heart wants to say yes, but it's a possibility for Marvin Harrison Jr. After signing and bringing back Jacoby Brissett, the Patriots could roll with him and take the one prospect who I believe will make the Hall of Fame. At the same time, Brissett is a very good backup and mentor and could give a rookie quarterback a few games to watch and learn from him. So where do they go? I think it's a 50-50 shot, but I also don't think New England should overthink this, and they should go with the new signal caller in Jaden Daniels. So the next two selections are straightforward, but I promise I'll have deeper analysis later on. Arizona has taken Marvin Harrison Jr. in I think all of my mocks, and they'll absolutely do it here if he's available. MHJ goes to Arizona at 4. And with the Chargers trading away Keenan Allen and cutting Mike Williams, their wide receiver core might be the worst in the NFL if they don't go receiver here. Once again, don't overthink this. It's LSU wideout Malik Neighbors who goes here. Now once we get to pick 6, things get really interesting. There are several quarterback suitors, including the Giants, but also the Vikings, the Broncos, the Raiders, all of them can move up. And I think one of them does here. The team with the most early capital in Minnesota is going to trade up here, and the details follow. Minnesota receives 6th overall and a 2025 4th rounder. New York receives picks 11 and 23, along with 2025 3rd and 5th round selections. So 3 quarterbacks are already off the board, and another quarterback being shown heavily in media mocks as a 4th. I gotta follow where the rumors go. Michigan quarterback J.J. McCarthy is who Minnesota jumps up to get. We move out of the trend of quarterbacks and wide receivers as we move on to the Tennessee Titans at pick 7. Going with Odunze wasn't a bad idea, but obviously after the signing of Ridley, this is out of the picture. Besides, the number one priority this offseason for Tennessee is to build the offensive line, and they've somewhat done that with the signings of Lloyd Cushenberry and Sadiq Charles. So they go with the consensus number 1 offensive lineman and take Notre Dame offensive tackle Joe Alt. And we get out of the offensive trend as we move on to Atlanta. After signing Kirk Cousins, QB is no longer in need, and they've done a great job at bringing in offensive threats like Darnell Mooney, Rondale Moore, and Ray McCloud. So they go to the defensive side of the ball. Corner and edge rusher are really the only 2 possible positions due to positional needs and value at 8th overall. In the end, I think they go with the consensus number 1 defender in this class and take Alabama edge rusher Dallas Turner. As we move on to Chicago's second pick of the draft, they could go with Rome Odunze and absolutely maximize their surround sound for Williams. But instead, I think they should be smarter and maximize a separate part of their team. I'm talking about the defensive line, and even if I didn't like their defensive tackle picks from last year, I think they stick to the edge and get a compliment for Montez Sweat. It's between Jared Verse and Laiatu Latu, and I like Latu more. So he's the 9th overall selection for Chicago. Then, as the New York Jets round out the top 10, I thought it was a gimme that they go with offensive tackle. Then they traded for Morgan Moses. Then they signed Tyron Smith. So there goes that, huh? So it's down to Washington wide receiver Rome Odunze and Georgia tight end Brock Bowers. It really comes down to the bigger need, and I think that bigger need comes at wide receiver. So Odunze is the selection here for the Jets. We stay in MetLife as the Giants get their pick after their trade down with Minnesota. They have absolutely stacked up in free agency, primarily on offense. So with that being said, they attack the defensive side of the ball, and it might be more straightforward than you think. The Brian Burns trade fills up the edge, the cornerback room has a lot of depth, and there's no safeties or linebackers worth this draft capital. Maybe at 23, but for now, they go with defensive tackle and take Texas's Byron Murphy II. Newton is possible as well, but it's likely Murphy goes first. It's time for that awkward phase where these teams kind of need quarterbacks, but they would be taking the 5th one off the board. Denver kicks that off, and I don't think they will go with QB5 at 12th overall. They may take one later, but then try to fill in bigger needs now. Running back, receiver, center, edge, linebacker, and cornerback, which is what they go with. Get a guy to complement Surtain, especially if it's the corner of your choice and the first one off the board. Most likely, Denver goes with Toledo corner Quinyon Mitchell. The Raiders are another quarterback needy team, but with both Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell in that quarterback room, they go the path that the Broncos took. And I mean the exact same path the Broncos took. They also go with cornerback. And while Cooper DeJean is the next best guy according to PFF, I decided to send Clemson's Nate Wiggins over to Vegas to give them a fantastic athlete with great physical tools as well. And then a third straight team could take quarterback, but this one is more sneaky. And while that's an option for the New Orleans Saints, there's someone who is too good to be true available for them at this slot. With the circumstances, only one offensive tackle has gone off the board, that one being Joe Alt at pick 7. With no other team needing offensive tackle as bad as other positions, Penn State's Olu Fashanu is available, and New Orleans shouldn't hesitate to take him. So then we have the Colts, which I think are a very intriguing team coming in. I've either had the Colts going with a wide receiver or Nate Wiggins these past couple months. Pittman is back, so that's not a great option anymore, and Nate Wiggins is gone, ruining that physical complement with Juju Brents. So where do they go? Well, a potential generational talent is somehow still on the board, and I don't think Indy can pass him up at this spot. I'm talking about Georgia tight end Brock Bowers, who finds his way here. The Seattle Seahawks made a couple very good signings this offseason, but they left a couple positional groups out of the picture, presumably looking to shoot up for these guys in the draft. Interior offensive line and defensive line pop up immediately, and with Jackson Powers Johnson being their third center, I decided to give them defensive tackle to fill up the trenches. There's only one other guy who might go here, and that's Illinois defensive tackle Jerzon Newton. 16 picks down, 16 to go. My last 2 mock drafts, I have had the Eagles trading up with the Jags to select a corner, but this time around, I am going to have the Jaguars stay in 17th. Why is that? Instead of taking a defensive tackle like before, they're going to take a cornerback, which is why they don't trade with a cornerback needy team. Because they go for corner instead, they have a lot of options including Terrion Arnold, Kool-Aid McKinstry, and my selection here, Iowa cornerback Cooper DeJean. Cincinnati made a lot of under-the-radar splashes in this free agency, but they left the offensive tackle position out for a reason. This tackle class is stacked with talent, and surprisingly a bunch of them have fallen because of positional needs. So this puts Cincy in a prime position to snag their right tackle of choice. I have a feeling that Mims could be the third tackle off the board because of his great amount of traits, but I'm going to have to stick with consensus number 3 and take Oregon State right tackle Talisa Fuaga. The Rams are another team that made some under-the-radar signings, but they still have a lot of needs to fill, especially on defense. Edge rusher, defensive line, linebacker, cornerback, and honestly safety too. They just need all defense. So why not throw a curveball out there and take an offensive player? It's what they did last year, and it wouldn't shock me if they do it again. especially if Washington offensive tackle Troy Fautanu is on the board at 19th overall. The Steelers wrap up the top 20 by fixing their quarterback situation and being able to fill in a need elsewhere. Outside of those quarterback signings and Patrick Queen, they didn't really make any massive signings that will hinder their draft plans. That's why I'm going to stick with them selecting a cornerback, and while Jackson Powers-Johnson is on the board and a lot of tackles are there as well, I don't know how this team can pass up Alabama corner Terrion Arnold. So he's my selection at 20th overall if I'm Pittsburgh. With the amount of offensive tackles on the board, any team can trade up to get their guy on the offensive line. With Miami not having a lot of needs, and they don't need offensive tackle, they trade down in this mock draft. Green Bay trades up with Miami here, and in that trade, Green Bay gets 21, and Miami receives 25 and 126. Ideally, Green Bay would want Fautanu in a trade-up situation, but they can't get him because LA got him. I don't think they would be upset, though, if they had to settle for Alabama's J.C. Latham, and that's what they do. Philly comes up now without a trade-up, and I know I said they needed cornerback, but they have a really fun scenario to work with. Jason Kelce just retired, and the Eagles now have a hole to fill on that offensive line. Centers don't often go in the first round, but with Oregon center Jackson Powers-Johnson being projected to be the first to do it since Tyler Linderbaum, I think Philly pulls the trigger at 22nd overall. The Giants have their second first-round pick from the Vikings trade, and now they switch over to the offensive side of the ball. They could go with the wide receiver here, given that they have a pretty bad surrounding core, or they could go offensive line, as the tackles continue to fall. But I'm going to be fun. Let's give New York a quarterback to work with, a new guy to compete with Daniel Jones for that starting job. I do like Penix more, but it's more likely that Nix goes at this slot, so Oregon's Bo Nix is the 23rd overall pick. The Cowboys have a surprising amount of needs as we head into 24th overall. I see more on the offensive side of the ball, as running back, wide receiver, and offensive line have their needs scattered around. When you look at the value all around though, running back isn't worth it this high, and they could definitely go offensive tackle after losing Tyron Smith. But I'm going to go a different route. At wide receiver, the Dallas Cowboys take LSU wideout Brian Thomas Jr. with the 24th pick. Miami is back after trading down from 21, and there are still really no offensive linemen worth taking here for the team. I like them taking a linebacker as a reach pick, just like Detroit did in the 2023 draft. But I'm going to go a different direction. I've had Jared Verse going to Tampa Bay for the last couple mocks, but I'm going to have him go one pick earlier to Miami at 25. For the same reasons though. Try him on the line and at outside linebacker, then place him where you would like. So where does that lead Tampa? Well, they could do the same strategy as Miami, or what they would have done with Verse, and instead do it with Alabama edge rusher Chris Braswell. But I'm going to go in a different direction, especially after Devin White left to join Philly. They go with a big replacement for him, and take NC State linebacker Peyton Wilson, who is actually very similar to White. Arizona now has their second first-round pick, and after going with MHJ at pick 4, they do exactly what the Giants did and go to the other side of the ball. Even after signing Sean Murphy-Bunting, they could use another corner in order to solidify Garrett Williams to the nickel position. Given how physical this cornerback room is, why not go with another physical playstyle and take the second Alabama corner in the first round? This one being Kool-Aid McKinstry. With how the draft has unfolded, the Bills are in a perfect situation. They want to capitalize off of a Josh Allen turnover-happy season and make sure he doesn't turn the ball over as much again. Do this by giving Allen more time. The Buffalo offensive line is fairly average already, so they can bring in an extremely high upside right tackle in Georgia's Amarius Mims. They take him at 28. The final 4 selections of this draft kick off with the Detroit Lions. They lost a few guys in free agency, so they do have more holes than I previously thought. I'm going to stick with the defense like I have the last couple, but I previously had Chris Braswell. The signing of Marcus Davenport takes that away though. But the loss of another free agent frees up a new selection. No Tracy Walker leaves the Detroit Lions with the opportunity to take Minnesota safety Tyler Nubin, and they will. The Baltimore Ravens have done a bunch in the offseason to keep key members and even add on some to become early Super Bowl favorites in some people's eyes. They still do have some holes, and I think it starts with adding on to the offense even more to make it dominant. If both offense and defense can dominate, this Baltimore team is golden. So they decided to go with wide receiver in this mock draft, and they go with their new ex-guy in Texas wideout Adonai Mitchell. The 49ers have had one massive need for the entire year and even in the offseason, and that is the main focus in this whole draft. They need to bolster that offensive line, but there's an opportunity to weaken that need a little bit, and they can do that by adding an inside-outside versatile blocker to the mix. There's one guy sitting right there, and that is Duke offensive lineman Graham Barton. If they do pick him, we'll see where he lands. And finally, to end this 2024 NFL mock draft, the Kansas City Chiefs do what I think everyone expects them to do. Take a wide receiver. I won't analyze this for long, but the Chiefs can fill in that need by taking a reliable slot guy for Mahomes. That guy is Georgia receiver Ladd McConkey. Alright, that is my fourth 2024 NFL mock draft. What do you think of the draft? Are there any picks you would change? Let me know in the comment section below. Wait, are you not subscribed yet? Well, do it now. I release content like this all the time and would really appreciate your support. I'm Chase Keller from Chase Keller Journalism, and I will see you all next time.